everyone, and welcome back to episode 10 today of Caps on the Coast. We're super excited to be tuning in this week. A lot of exciting football has been going on lately, and yeah, it's a great time to be talking about some soccer. We've come a long way in the last 10 episodes. I feel like we've made some good strides in the right direction. So if you guys want to let us know down in the comments how you've been enjoying the episodes, and subscribe and leave a like because that fires us up to keep recording these. And yeah, we'd love some engagement and to hear from you guys as well. So yeah, how are you feeling ahead of this episode?
Yeah, well, it's amazing how quickly time has flown by, right? This is our 10th today, and it just seems like a couple of weeks ago we started. We're doing one a week and really enjoying it. Now that we're into full stride with the MLS going and a couple of weeks and CONCACAF Champions League and getting excited about the World Cup. So we certainly got lots to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different football avenues that we could go with this podcast. Today, I wanted to take a bit of a different approach and discuss the Champions League because we're in the round of 16 now. So there's some very exciting matchups. And yeah, I was thinking we could break down um, the two legs of the round of 16s. Today, leg one finished of the tournament, and I'm still buzzing about the games. They just finished about 20 minutes ago, right before we started recording this episode. So, yeah, it's still fresh in my mind. But wow, it was a crazy game day today, and there were some shocking score lines that a lot of people wouldn't have predicted ahead of the matches. So I guess let's start off with yesterday. Galatasaray and Liverpool played their first match. So these are all leg one of two games. The first leg of the draw, round of 16. Galatasaray beat Liverpool 1-0, and this was in Turkey, the match. It was definitely a bit of a shocking result. Liverpool were not able to find a goal, which is surprising given all the talent and money that they've spent on transfers, especially in the offseason. They had the most transfers ever for money spent in the offseason. I think they spent nearly 250 million euros on transfers. So they were expecting a really good season this year, and it hasn't quite clicked for them yet. But yeah, all is to play for next game at the Allianz Field in Liverpool. The other game that kicked off at 1 o'clock was Newcastle and Barcelona. That ended in a 1-1 draw. And then the two shockers of the day were Atletico Madrid beating Tottenham 5-2, and Bayern Munich beating Atalanta 6-1. So out of those four games from yesterday, what really stood out to you?
Well, like you say, there was some high scoring games there. Bayern were up after 25 minutes against Atlanta 3-0. So, they won 6-1 and so I guess the idea for them is to rest some key players for the and they basically booked their ticket to the quarterfinal right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tottenham were certainly stunned by Atletico Madrid. They're going to have their work cut out for them for sure in the second leg. They've got to score 4 goals. So those two matchups are really unless there's another big shocker, those. Bayern and Atletico Madrid looks like they're going to go through. I feel sorry for Newcastle because they were winning 1-0 until towards the end of the game, and then there was a penalty against them, and I think
Lamine Yamal scored it. Yeah.
Yamal, yeah, Lamin Yamal scored to basically take the victory away from them. Yeah, I'm sure the Newcastle fans are not too happy about that one.
Yeah. And there's some Canadian ties with the Bayern Munich Atalanta game as well. We're going to talk about it a bit later, but Alphonso Davies re-injured himself after coming in off the bench in a shocking move by the coach to bring him on. I don't think anyone expected Davies to come in so early after his injury, so fresh off the injury. He pulled a muscle, it was a muscle fiber tear. He was said to be out for at least 3 to 6 weeks, and the injury was about 2 weeks ago now. So it was really soon to bring him back in. And same kind of thing, he just tweaked his hamstring right after coming off the bench. So very disappointing for Canadian fans right now. but I didn't think anyone expected that match to be so one-sided. Atalanta are a good squad. They're, I think, top 3 or 4 in Serie A at the moment. They've been playing well this season. They have some great players like Decatelaire and some others that have been playing really well. Although Lookman did just get a move to Atletico Madrid, so I'm sure that's affecting them a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the draw is pretty much over with at this point. There's no way they come back from a 5-0, deficit in aggregate. I don't think there's any way they come back from that, especially against a side of Bayern's quality.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bayern are probably the favorite to win Champions League this year alongside Arsenal. So, yeah, I don't think there's any chance they come back from that. It's pretty much done and dusted at this point. Atletico Madrid, that game was crazy. The Tottenham goalkeeper made, I think, 2 or 3 goal goal mistakes in the first 20 minutes where he gave the ball away to the Atletico players. And they capitalized on the goalie's mistake and scored. And before the halftime, the Tottenham head coach took off the goalkeeper. He subbed him out of the match. So that's pretty rare. You don't often see that in European football or any football around the world, really. It's quite rare for the manager to bring off the keeper, especially before halftime. But I guess he felt a lot of the goals were down to his mistakes, which I
Mm-hmm.
mean is true to a certain degree. But the pitch was also very slippery that day. I noticed a lot of players were slipping, and a couple of the mistakes came down to the goalie just kind of miskicking it due to the pitch. But Julian Alvarez had a couple of goals. So that'll be good for his confidence because he's been struggling to score for Atletico. Antoine Griezmann scored, which is interesting because he's been rumored to Orlando to a move to MLS, but it doesn't look like that's going to go through in this transfer window. He said in an interview that he wants to stay with Atletico and hopefully make it to a Champions League final and to win the Copa del Rey. I'm
Mm-hmm.
in Spain, so it looks like he wants to at least spend the rest of the season with Atletico Madrid and hopefully win a few trophies. You can't blame him. He's a club legend. He's been there for forever, so it makes sense that he wants to finish the season. Hopefully he comes to Orlando after that because he still has a lot to give as a player. He's in his early 30s, and I still think he can offer a lot in the attack. But yeah, that was a really interesting game, and I think Tottenham are going to really struggle now to come back as well from that deficit. It's going to be very challenging for them. But let's get into some of the matches today because these are even more exciting in my opinion. And I just finished watching the PSG Chelsea match, and in a shocking fashion, PSG scored 3 goals in I believe the last 20 minutes to win the game 5-2. Vitinha scored in the 74th minute, and then Kvaratskhelia off the bench scored in the 86th minute, and then in added time. So what a weapon Kvaratskhelia is to have off the bench to bring him in at the end. And yeah, Chelsea weren't able to hold on to the draw. At one point, it was 2-2 in the game, and they were playing really well. So, yeah, are you surprised by that scoreline there?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I am. I didn't see the games, but yeah, I thought Chelsea would possibly pull it out. They got a good team. Yeah.
Yeah, and the game was in Paris, so to be able to come away with a 2-2 draw in
Mm-hmm.
France against the defending Champions League, they won the Champions League last season, PSG. And I guess it's worth noting as well that this is a rematch from the Club World Cup final where Chelsea beat PSG 3-0. So I
Mm-hmm.
think PSG wanted a bit of revenge, and they were probably still a bit salty about not winning that match in the United States in the Club World Cup. So yeah, that was a very exciting game. Pedro Neto, a Chelsea player, pushed a ball boy to the ground in the last 10 minutes
Mm.
and snatched the ball out of his hands because Chelsea were pushing for a goal, and the ball boy like held the ball away from Neto, and he ran up and shoved him to the to the field. Surprisingly, he didn't get a yellow card for it.
Wow.
I think the ref was a bit understanding because Chelsea really needed another goal. They were pushing for the goal, and the ball boy is instructed to give the ball to the player if he's right there. But he was probably a PSG fan for sure, and he didn't want Chelsea winning, so he was almost the 12th man on the field for. But yeah, Leverkusen and Arsenal tied 1-1. That game was in Germany. Bit of a shocker that Arsenal didn't come away with a win there, but all will be to play for next week. And Real Madrid won 3-0 against Manchester City. Definitely the most shocking result of today. Fede Valverde scored a hat trick in the first half, mind you. First hat trick of his career. And yeah, Madrid pretty much played City off the park today. They looked like the team who was going to score the fourth goal. Vinny Jr. missed a penalty at the end of the match. So yeah, that was a crazy game. And then Bodo Glimt won 3-0 over Sporting in Norway. So yeah. What do you want to add on those two matches?
Well, I think the Norwegian team have been sort of the surprise team in the sense that they're a small team and they're not an acknowledged powerhouse, but they've been knocking off the teams that are considered much better than them. To come, were they playing in Norway? Yeah, but it's a good win for them anyway. It won't be as easy in Portugal, but against Sporting, but they'll be confident. They have a confident team. They have to be knocking off the big boys like that. Yeah, it's a good win for them. Yeah. The other game, Tottenham.
I was talking about Real Madrid and Manchester City.
I thought that would be a closer game. Obviously, Real Madrid were on top of the play at all times, and yeah. So Man City, they're struggling. They've been struggling off and on all year. It's going to be hard for them to come back now.
Yeah. Donnarumma made a couple big mistakes in the first half
Oh yeah.
where Valverde was on a breakaway on one of the plays,
Mm-hmm.
and Donnarumma was inside his box, and he dove down to get the ball, but I don't think he realized that he was still inside his box. So at the last minute, he lifted his hand up to not touch the ball, but he had the capability to stop the play at that moment and stop Valverde from scoring. But Valverde ended up just touching the ball around him, ran around him, and scored from a pretty tough angle. So yeah, a credit to Real Madrid because they just had a manager change with Jabi Alonso being fired as the head coach. And, this is the most impressive win I think they've had since that time, for sure, because City are no joke. They probably have the most depth of any club in the world. Being able to bring players like Cherky and Foden and all these talented young players off the bench, I think it speaks to the money they've spent on transfers. But if you can't put it together, you can't. So yeah, it's not looking good for City. It's going to be very tough to come back from 3-0 at home next game.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like you said, Bodo Glimt is definitely the shocker team of the tournament, being able to knock off European giants. They beat Atletico Madrid in the group stage. They beat Juventus as well, and yeah, they've had some great performances. So they beat Man City actually. That was probably their most impressive win out of all of them.
Okay.
But yeah, they're definitely the darlings of the tournament. They've been playing their socks off, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them advance against Sporting, being 3-0 up. It'll be really hard for Sporting to come back, but yeah, all to play for next week. We'll give you guys an update of the games going on then. They play next Tuesday and Wednesday on the 17th and 18th of March, and yeah, we'll see who goes through at the next round. But I think these are some of the most exciting matchups we've had in the round of 16, particularly Chelsea and PSG and Real Madrid and Man City. Those are, potentially finals at the Champions League, but we're getting to see these matchups pretty early on. So I think that's exciting. And yeah, I love PSG and Chelsea as a matchup because they're just so high pressing, high paced teams. They're not as patient on the ball. They just like to press the play, and I think leg two is going to be great, but it's going to be extremely difficult for Chelsea to score 3 goals and not concede if they want to go through. But yeah, looking ahead now, let's talk some MLS games. We had some crazy matchups this past weekend. We saw the Whitecaps beat Portland 4-1. So that was shocking, especially away from home down in Portland. And there was another couple games that really stood out to me. For example, Toronto beat Cincinnati one, and Montreal beat New York Red Bulls 3-0, which is definitely the most shocking result of the entire weekend, given how Montreal has played. But yeah, what stood out to you from the MLS games?
Well, yeah. First of all, let's talk Whitecaps. It was an outstanding game for the Whitecaps. 16 shots on goal, and this is what they were trying to do: is to make it more difficult for the opposing goalkeeper, and they certainly did in this game. 16 shots and 7 on goal, actually, and they played extremely well. They were, according to Sorensen, it was the strongest performance to date of the games. They looked strong throughout the game, a good flow in possession. Portland came out aggressively and put some pressure on our defense, but we were able to deal with that, adapt to it. He thought the goal Portland scored towards the end of the game was a wonderful shot, a good goal, and we were a little bit shaky after that goal for a few minutes, but we scored our fourth goal after that, and from that point on, we were in control. So it was a game which, playing in Portland, the Whitecaps would be very, Sorensen and the team of coaches would be very happy with. With the Toronto game, Toronto came out firing. It was obviously their strongest game of the year, and they put pressure on Cincinnati. Played very well against Cincinnati. Cincinnati had a little bit of an edge in possession, but shots on goal, shots were 10, 7 on goal for Toronto, and they deserved the 1-0 win with beautiful play from Larea, through ball up the left wing, and Salwa, is it Salwa? Do I pronounce
Daniel Shallowy.
Salawi? Hungarian striker. Made it, ran onto the ball from Larea and hit a beautiful low shot to the corners. It was a well-deserved 1-0 win for Toronto. The Montreal game was, like you're suggesting, the biggest surprise of the weekend because they hadn't scored a goal up to that point. They were 8 goals against, no goals scored. They came out flying. They were outplayed, 63% to 37% possession, but they had 10 shots and 4 of them on goal, and 3 of them were goals. Carmona, who's in plays for Venezuela, Venezuelan striker. Wiki Carmona, I believe his name. He scored 2 of the goals. He had an outstanding game, and was it Owusu scored the other one? Anyway, it will certainly help their confidence, Montreal's confidence from here on in after winning like that in New York.
It was shocking because New York started the season very well too. Like
Yeah.
they won their first 2 matches. I think they were the only team in the Eastern Conference to come away with 2 wins. So um, I mean, people were expecting them to just knock Montreal out of the park, I bet, but that's not how it went. It's good to see that Montreal can still win a game despite the lack of confidence and lack of cohesiveness that they've shown in the first 2 matches, because I'm sure it was very difficult for them to imagine this season with how they played in the first 2 games. They must have just been really down on themselves after the way they lost to Chicago, especially after Chicago conceded a red card. Yeah, some great matchups. Like you said, Toronto completely, I wouldn't say dominated, but they did have some really good play despite their other 2 weeks. They played well. Mihailovic had a good game, almost scored a volley. Daniel Shallowy had a beautiful shot to the far post. Yeah, I thought Richie Larea played great and made some good runs, had some good defending moments as well. So I'm excited to see him back in a Canadian shirt. I really hope he starts the World Cup because he's been playing beautifully. And it seems like every time he plays for Canada, he just has an amazing match. Player of the year last year for us. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him at the World Cup. And then to move on to, Vancouver and Portland, you gave a bit of a breakdown, but I think it's worth noting that all 3 of the goals came from our American players, Berhalter, Blackman, and White. White scored 2. Blackman scored a header from a Berhalter free kick.
Yeah.
It was a funny goal. Blackman headed it off a free kick, and then it hit the goalie, and it ricocheted back up and hit Blackman in the nose, and then went into the net. It was like a double ricochet. So Berhalter actually wasn't even credited with the assist on that ball, even though he had a beautiful pass to the far post to meet Blackman's run. And Blackman was completely unmarked at the back post. Portland did not do a very good job of defending in this game. They left lots of gaps. That was quite evident in the 4th goal when Cabrera picked out White with a nice through ball pass, and White just one touch finish into the bottom corner. So it's great to see White back at picking up some form.
Mm-hmm.
We talked in the other episodes about his slow start to the season. He missed a penalty and missed a sitter in front of the net in against Cartagena's in round one of Champions Cup. So yeah, it's good to see him get some confidence. But I think that's kind of the trend with White over the years. Is he's a very hot and cold striker. He can go cold for a few matches, but he rarely loses his form for long periods of time. It seems like it just takes him a bit to recalibrate, and then he finds his form right away again. So I think the best is still yet to come from Brian White, but he looked good in hold up play in this game. And usually, hold up play for Brian is correlated with goals. I think when he's playing well, he's doing both of those things, scoring and holding up the ball for his teammates. So, yeah, it was great to see him get off the mark. I think Berhalter was man of the match. He should have been credited with player of the match day in the MLS, I think, with his 2 assists and his goal that he scored. But the MLS had a very interesting decision. I know I sent you the post on Instagram, but they had nominated 4 players for Player of the Match Day. Brian White was one of them, and Brian White received the most votes. He had just above 40% of the votes out of the 4 players. So usually whoever gets the most votes is selected as the Player of the Match Day. But the MLS, for some reason, elected to go with Carmona, who you mentioned from Montreal. They give him the award, even though he wasn't even selected as a player of the match day nominee. Yeah, what do you make of that? It seems very strange.
I'd say they're confused. They're not doing a very good job in their selection. When Berhalter, his goal and an assist, and White 2 goals, and Berhalter was selected the player of the match, and it should be considered in their selection. So it's hard to figure it, what they need to look at that a little more carefully in their analysis.
Yeah, it must have been a mistake on their end because, yeah, normally whoever wins that vote is the player of the match day. Anyway, it's not a huge deal. It's an MLS award that doesn't mean much, but I like to see the Whitecaps players get some credit because over the years they've been very underappreciated by the league. And I think just now in the last 2 seasons, we're finally starting to see some recognition from the pundits in the MLS and from the media as well. Yeah, it's good. It's good to see us get some credit, but I hope we win some player of the match day accommodations going forward. But yeah, the Whitecaps were very impressive, 4-1 in Portland. I thought it was funny to hear Phil Neville's comments after the game, the Portland head coach. He was talking about how his players played like boys and not like men. And he was saying when you go up against men like the Whitecaps, you have to play like men. He didn't take any accountability whatsoever for the performance. He completely threw the blame on his players. So I can only imagine how hard it is to be in that locker room at the moment.
Uh-huh.
It seems like with Phil Neville, it's just kind of like vibes at the moment. Like there's no real structure to anything they're doing. It doesn't seem like they have an identity within the team. They're not working for each other. Phil Neville pointed out how in the 93rd minute you saw Thomas Muller running back to make a tackle, and the same from Sebastian Berhalter. I don't know if you remember at the end of the game, he lost the ball. He made a beautiful run, chased one of the Portland wingers down the entire pitch, and then made a slide tackle from behind and just got in his face and was screaming at him. And I think that just is a testament to how the Whitecaps play and how they play for each other and what our identity is together, right?
It typifies the intensity with which the Whitecaps play. Berhalter's running back so hard, as hard as he could, and then that tackle in his own end. He ran half the length of the pitch to make that tackle with such intensity. Like you say, that's the way the Whitecaps are playing, and I'm sure Neville was looking and seeing the difference between his players and the Whitecaps, and one just shaking his head about it.
Yeah, he was extremely disappointed. And Phil Neville never holds back with his comments too. That's the thing. He
Uh-huh.
will say whatever he's feeling.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a bit odd that he didn't take any accountability because it doesn't seem like Portland's game plan was up to par with the Whitecaps. And that largely comes down to the head coach probably setting a standard of play. But he's definitely, given it to them now. And yeah, let's talk about another few matches that stood out to me. New York City beat Orlando 5-0. I thought that was surprising. Crepeau got a red card in
That's
the
right.
first 20 minutes.
He came.
I was
He touched the ball with his hand. He came to
outside the box.
pick up. Oh, but when he picked it up, he was just outside the penalty area. So
It's a
it was
silly mistake.
in the beginning of the game. So it was a short game for
Yeah, he didn't stay on the pitch for long. He hasn't exactly had a tremendous start to his Orlando campaign. I think with Crépeau and St. Clair, it's really just it coming down to inconsistency
Mhm.
because Crépeau has made some beautiful saves this season, and at times he's looked like one of the best goalkeepers in the league. But he hasn't been able to find consistent form with any team. Like in Portland, he was just getting dropped in and out of the starting 11 every week. It was like just pretty much a coin toss between him and James Pantemis for who was going to start. And it seems like no coach can put full confidence in him because he just makes mistakes that you can't make as a goalkeeper. And we're looking at the number one for Canada. This guy needs to be consistent, right?
Well, it's interesting. You know, he was playing for Vancouver a few years ago, and he was considered that one year the most valuable player on the team.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the pinnacle for him, I think.
Hmm.
He left Vancouver. It's been a gradual slide for Crapeau, in the sense he hasn't been able to reach that same level of play that he had with Vancouver.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about that too. When he was at Vancouver, he was very consistent.
Yeah,
He had good performances every week. He
that's right.
was saving penalties, he was saving point blank shots. Yeah, he was by far our best player.
Yeah,
And he was nominated for goalkeeper of the year that season as well. I think he was with the Whitecaps for 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
But yeah, like you said, that was kind of the peak of his career, and he hasn't been able to replicate that.
Well, I remember how disappointed the Whitecap fans were when all of a sudden he's leaving the team during that summer after the season's finished.
Hmm. He made the move to LAFC.
After the playoffs are finished, he's on his way. We sort of why is he leaving? Oh, there was no indication
Yeah, no reason.
earlier. Was seemed like a huge loss for Vancouver.
Yeah, for sure. It hasn't turned out to be a good decision for him
No,
because he's had trouble. This is his third club now since the Whitecaps. He had a, pretty unlucky stint with LAFC. I remember he broke his leg in the playoffs
that's true.
in the MLS Cup final. Uh, to save a goal, he broke his leg. LAFC ended up winning that cup final with a beautiful goal from Gareth Bale to tie the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, he hasn't looked the same, and maybe the injury has something to do with it because there is times where you see players that get injured and they never look quite the same afterwards. But
There might,
yeah,
who knows? Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, same thing with Dane St. Clair's inconsistency to start the season. It might not be the best fit for him at Inter Miami with the style of football that they play
yeah,
because they're very shaky in their back line. And St. Clair is, he thrives on shots from distance, I think. With Minnesota, they played a very tight defensive back line and they didn't allow many chances close to the net. So he was able to make saves, but most of these shots were coming from a distance. Now with Miami, it's more close range shots that he's taking in. And
yeah,
he doesn't seem to have quite the reflexes in that amount of time. Because he does pride himself as being a shot stopper,
yeah.
but we haven't seen the same Dane St. Clair from Minnesota last season, have we?
No, we haven't. Of course, Miami's playing tonight in the CONCACAF Champions League. They're playing Nashville.
Oh
So
yeah,
try and watch some of that game and starting at 4:30. So we'll see how he does tonight, but he certainly needs to again prove himself.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. On that note, let's have a look to the games that are coming up this week. Tomorrow, the Whitecaps will take on Seattle in Vancouver for their first of a two-legged matchup in the CONCACAF. This is the second round, so the Whitecaps will be looking to advance, but they have 2 games to take care of against Seattle. It's kind of cool. We get a derby between the Cascadia rivals, so that always adds extra excitement. And then, yeah, Whitecaps take on Minnesota on Sunday. And James Rodriguez said in an interview that he will be making his debut against Thomas Muller's team this weekend. That's how he phrased it. He's like, I will make my debut against Thomas Muller's team. So I think that kind of shows you how he sees the league as players that are spotlighted by stars rather than like collectively. I mean that's a bit of an assumption, but yeah, what are you looking at for these two games?
Well, it's not going to be easy. There's quite a rivalry, as we know from the Cascadia games, Portland, Vancouver, and Seattle. So it's going to be an intense game, or intense two games. But right now, Seattle are in sixth place, and we're tied for first at the top of the league. But I understand Seattle's dealing with a few injuries right now. That could affect the game. Morris is out for 4 weeks with
Mm.
quad strain. Dotson, a concussion protocol. Pedro de la Vega, he's out for 6 months with a broken kneecap. Ryan Kent in training is in training, but not supposed to play until Seattle play Minnesota. So um, Rothrock has been a threat. They won. They beat Colorado. Seattle beat Colorado 2-0. He got a goal and an assist in that game.
Hmm.
So it was dangerous. And but I think if we should be able to handle Seattle if we play with the same kind of intensity and motivation that we played with that we had with Portland. So I'm confident we'll get through. Seattle have had a good record of CONCACAF too over the years, and they've gone all the way to the final. I can't remember if they won the final one year.
Yeah, they did.
They did. They've got a history of doing well in these kinds of games. But I'm confident we need to probably do our best to certainly to win that game in Vancouver before we go to Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in recent years, the Whitecaps have proven to be better in knockout soccer because historically they haven't done so well against the giants of CONCACAF like LAFC and Tigres and some of these Mexican teams. They haven't done very well. But last season, it feels like they kind of turned the script when they beat Pumas and Monterrey. Those were two big Mexican giants that they took down.
Mm-hmm.
They did lose to Cruz Azul in the final, but to be able to get to that point with all the injuries that they had last season just speaks to the collective togetherness that they have under Jesper Sorensen. And I think there's just a new philosophy in the room that it can't be replicated by other teams. I think Whitecaps just have the best cohesiveness in the league, and they really just fight for each other on and off the pitch. I think we can beat Seattle. It will be tight. Like you said, we got to get a result in Vancouver. It'll help that Seattle isn't playing at SoFi. Is it or sorry? What's their Lumen Field? They're playing.
In Spokane.
Yeah, in Spokane. Yeah, so that'll help because Seattle aren't used to playing there. But another thing to note for the Whitecaps, I'll give a quick rundown of their players because you touched on Seattle. So Andres Cubas is suspended in this match. He picked up his second yellow card against Cartagenas in leg two.
No.
I thought it was a bit silly of Sorensen to bring him on at the end of the game because Whitecaps were already up 2-0 and Cartagenas was pushing for a goal. So it was always going to be a possibility that Kubas was going to get stuck into a tackle. But with him out, it opens a question mark of who's going to partner up with Berhalter in the midfield in the first leg. I think they're going to struggle to replace Kubas. They have no one on the team that plays that same profile. But I did think of something that is worth shouting out. There's a possibility that Ralph Priso could actually move into that role, and then Matias Laborda could replace him at center back. I think that's something worth noting. That could be a good replacement. Other than that, I see Oliver Larraz as a potential replacement or Jeevan Bodwal, but neither of those players can play up to the same level as Kubas. So it will definitely be a bit of a drop off in quality. But yeah, other than that, the other players should be ready to go. I expect to see Sabi on the wing, returning from a bit of a fitness issue I think he had in the first few matches. He picked up a red card in the MLS that was pointed out later, but that won't affect him in this competition. So yeah, I expect Sabi, and then on the other wing, I would think Cabrera might start because he's coming back from a slight injury and he looked really good off the bench in the last game. If not, it'll be AZ Jackson, Thomas Mueller between the two wingers, Brian White up top, of course. And then at fullback, I see Tate Johnson starting at the left back, Edier Ocampo on the right back, and then probably Blackman and Laborda or Blackman and Priso some combination of those two, and then Takaoka between the sticks to hold it down. Yeah, how do you think they'll line up? Do you agree with that?
I do. I do. I didn't realize Kubas was not going to be playing on tomorrow night. So, like you say, it's going to be difficult to duplicate the same quality. It won't be possible to duplicate the quality that Kubas and Berhalter have together in midfield. But I like what you're suggesting. Badwell's been playing really well. He's had a lot of time. He could be there alongside. He's a strong player and tackles hard, and he could be playing next to Berhalter in midfield.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible Priso could be up there too and then have Laborda back on the back line. We'll have to wait and see. But
Mm-hmm.
I like your selection.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we'll see what happens this weekend against Minnesota. Whitecaps playing at home. I would expect another win. Hopefully a clean sheet as they've been doing so well at home. Minnesota have a good team. Most of their goals have been coming from their striker, Yaboa up top. I think he scored in their first two games of the season, so he's in good form right now. Like I said, James Rodriguez will most likely make his debut, I would think, as a substitute off the bench. But yeah, against Minnesota, what are some of the threats do you think that Minnesota pose to the Whitecaps?
Well, they're a very energetic team. They've got a fast breaking team. If I'm right, they move the ball really quickly down the field,
Yeah.
and that is one of their threats on the counter attack. Um, they don't always get a lot of shots on goal, but they're fast breaking teams. So we're gonna have to watch their counter attack very quickly because for possession they've never been a possession based team, but
Mm-hmm.
counter attack is what we're gonna have to watch for.
Yeah, they lost 3-1 to Nashville last week.
Did they?
So two goals from Sam Surridge for Nashville, one from Christian Espinoza, who was a big acquisition for them in the offseason. So yeah, they'll want to make a good impression after that loss. Pereira in the midfield is a player to watch for Minnesota. He's been a great acquisition for them, and Triantis in the midfield as well has been playing well. So yeah, they do have a really good defense. They're structurally sound back there. I think they have a couple injuries to the back line at the moment. Their main center back is out through injury. But yeah, they are a counter-attacking based team. They don't have much possession, so Whitecaps will be looking to dominate the ball, move it around quick, and catch them with maybe some set piece goals even because they've been doing well off set pieces. But yeah, finally, let's do our Canadians abroad segment. Just a few things to note this week. Buchanan scored for Villarreal. It was a beautiful goal, a few step overs, and just rifled it in the top shelf. Great to see him off the mark. It's his first goal since 2025, I believe. So yeah, good for his confidence. Luc de Fougerolles is injured with Dender. It came out through injury recently last weekend. Um, that's another blow to Canada's back line. We already talked about how we have very little depth at the moment because of injuries at the back line. And then yeah, Alphonso Davies muscle tear. So yeah, what stands out to you with the Canadian news as of late?
Well, like you suggest, you mentioned Luca de Fougerolles. He sustained an ankle injury, I understand, in a game against Charlevoix, and he's a defensive workhorse for Dender. So this puts him out of training for a while. Hopefully he'll be back, but he's a strong player for Dender in the Belgium league. Let's hope he gets back. Davies, this is bad luck again.
Yeah, he keeps getting injured.
Yeah, so you mentioned, I think, everybody that we're concerned with. Cornelius is training now with the first team after a hamstring injury. Alistair Johnston, close to returning, we hope. We might see him.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some players on the verge of coming back for Team Canada, but yeah, it's just so concerning with all the injuries at the back line that there aren't more complications. With Davies, we've seen multiple complications. Tore his ACL last spring, about a year ago, playing for Canada. Was out through injury for about 8 months. Came back, was playing for about a month with Bayern Munich. re-injured himself or tore a muscle in his hamstring, like a smaller muscle tear. Was out for a couple weeks, came back the other day, played a few minutes against Atalanta, and re-injured himself again. Posterior thigh muscle strain is the classification of that injury. So it's concerning, especially with the timing. The March window is coming up. Canada will play Iceland and Tunisia at the end of the month on March 20th and some other time that week for the second game. But yeah, so yeah, two games in close proximity, but hopefully Davies can make a good recovery. And I think the worry with him is he utilizes his explosiveness so much in his play. He's like one of the fastest players in the world, especially with acceleration. And I think accelerating that quickly has repercussions on your muscles. And I think we're seeing that with his injuries, that explosiveness might not be the same as it once was due to the various muscle injuries he's sustained.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it makes it more difficult for him to come back strong because of that. Yeah, his muscle strength is not as good as it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be questions asked if the coach rushed him in to play too quickly right after his injury because he was only out for 17 days and then he was thrusted back into the lineup. So that's of worry, of course, that he's not being managed properly. Um, I'm sure they'll be more cautious this time around with him taking a break out. Yeah, I'm excited for these March camp friendlies. They're going to be great. And we'll keep monitoring the Whitecaps as they play quite a few games in the next few days against Seattle and a couple other teams. Yeah, thank you guys once again for tuning in. I don't know if there's anything you want to add before we close it off.
No, I think it's a good wrap up, and what you've done. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of players today, and we look forward again to the continuation of CONCACAF Champions League with the Whitecaps again tomorrow and playing Seattle and the MLS games this weekend. Playing Whitecaps playing Minnesota, so lots of good football, soccer on to watch over the next week or so.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you guys once again tuning in. Episode 10 of Caps on the Coast. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep uploading. Expect some World Cup content soon, some more Champions League breakdowns. Definitely want to cover the leg 2 matchups of the round of 16 and the other games going forward. This is a very exciting time as football fans, and we look forward every week to bringing you guys news. So, yeah, I've been Ty, he's been Keith, and thanks once again for tuning in.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye for now.